morning. I'm going to take you straight to the Oval Office now, where President Trump's been giving an update on the Russia-Ukraine situation. He's been speaking after the meeting between Trump and Putin in Hungary was torpedoed today after a fallout over how the war should end. Let's listen to President Trump now.
I don't want to have a wasted meeting. I don't want to have a waste of time, so I'll see what happens. But we did all of these great deals, great peace deals. They're all peace deals. They're agreements, solid agreements, every one of them. But this one, and I said, go to the line of battle, on the battlefield lines, and you pull back and you go home, and everybody take some time off, because you got two countries that are killing each other. Two countries that are losing 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers a week. So we'll see what happens. We haven't made a determination. I do. It's a vicious look. It's a vicious war. It doesn't really affect us. We sell equipment to them. We sell equipment to NATO, and NATO gives it to Ukraine, but we don't pay anything anymore. Biden spent $350 billion. The war would have never happened if I were president. Would have never, not even a million years. And Putin knows that too. Would have never happened. But it did happen, and I came in, and I have to see if I can put it out. But it doesn't affect us, because we're not losing soldiers there. Although, when I first came in, that could have ended up, it's not going to happen, but it could have ended up in World War III. That was really out of control. So now it's, they're shooting and they're killing people, and I think Putin wants it to end, and I think Zelensky wants it to end, and I think it's going to end.
Well, there we go. President Trump remaining somewhat diplomatic still and hopeful of a peace still. Look, I'm not sure exactly when I decided I'd had enough of Russia's antics in Ukraine, but it possibly came during my family holiday to Turkey in August. Russian holidaymakers, and I'm sure you've had the same, overtook the hotel we were staying in, and, well, you can probably guess the rest. I flew home wanting Ukraine to be armed to the absolute teeth so they could finish Russia off for good. And tonight, I wouldn't blame President Trump for his patience wearing thin over Putin either, because Russia today has refused to accept America's terms for a ceasefire. They've long demanded, Russia, that Ukraine withdraws from the entirety of the eastern Donetsk and Luhansk regions as the precondition of peace. But it's just not going to work. The White House, though, today announced there are no plans for Putin and Trump to meet in the immediate future. Zelensky, meanwhile, reckons Russia bottled the Hungary meeting because Trump wouldn't give Ukraine Tomahawk missiles. Zelensky said Russia almost automatically became less interested in diplomacy when it became clear Trump had delayed any decision to hand over the Tomahawks to Kyiv. Zelensky, meanwhile, will travel to London on Friday to meet with the so-called Coalition of the Willing, headed by Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron. And in the UK, we are apparently ready to splash the cash in defence of Ukraine. This is Defence Secretary John Healey today.
And as a government, we are stepping up further. This year will provide the highest level of military aid to Ukraine ever, £4.5 billion this year alone. We've taken over the leadership of the Ukraine Defence Contact Group alongside Germany.
Before we get stuck into that, tonight, using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today. Good evening, thanks for your company. I was half joking in that introduction there about the Russians overtaking the Turkish hotel, but in actual fact, my patience with Russia is wearing thin, and I fear President Trump's must be now as well. What's your take, Stuart?
Good evening, or good morning is here. I think that you're absolutely right. I think everybody's patience is wearing thin with Putin and his Russian administration. And I think the US President, Donald Trump, is getting increasingly frustrated by the fact that he can't make any progress because, frankly speaking, Russia actually doesn't want a ceasefire. Russia's war aims, such as they were expressed at the beginning of the conflict, 3.5 years ago, remain the same. And they keep imposing impossible conditions on Zelensky and the Ukrainians for a ceasefire. And the Ukrainian withdrawal from the Donbass, which they're now demanding, is just a non-starter, because that is the one defense line, robust defense line, that's stopping the Russians entering center of Ukraine. So it's just not going to happen. And I think Donald Trump has run out of patience, and as he said himself, doesn't want to waste his time with a meeting in Budapest.
Yeah, I mean, he's being fairly diplomatic when you consider his outspoken sort of rhetoric on other issues. But what should happen now? How should the US proceed? Do you think Americans, I'll ask the panel actually in a minute, do you think Americans are getting sick of this war? Because frankly, it's nothing to do with them. It's thousands of miles away, and it's Europe, it's NATO that's potentially under threat, not America.
Yes, I think that's the case. But of course, America is the linchpin of NATO. And the one thing that Putin doesn't want is to enter into direct conflict with NATO, because he knows that Russia would lose. So we're in a very difficult situation where I think Donald Trump is walking a tightrope in the diplomatic efforts that he is making, trying to bring both sides to some sort of compromise where they can start negotiations. But at the moment, the Russians are not interested. And it's interesting that the carrot and stick diplomacy that he employs can be seen at play here again. But I think maybe it is now high time, rather than react to Putin and the Russians, that Donald Trump and his NATO allies in Europe should start to impose their terms on Russia and say, well, you know, if you don't come to the negotiating table, we will give Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, which won't finish the war. It's not a war-winning weapon, but it will certainly change the dynamic.
Okay, just educate me, Stuart. Why are Tomahawks so important? What are their capabilities? What do they do? And who else can give them to Ukraine? Is it just the United States that can do that? Or, I mean, can Keir Starmer do it?
Well, taking the capabilities, it's an American designed cruise missile, which can be launched from the air, from land, or from submarines in the sea. And the importance of it to Ukraine is that it has an unclassified range of about 1,500 kilometers, probably more than that in reality, which almost gives the Ukrainians 10 times more reach into Russia than it has at the moment with missiles like the Storm Shadow, which the UK has provided to them. The other answer is that no, only the US can release them to Russia, and although the UK has them for our submarines, there's no way that we could give them to Ukraine without US approval.
Okay, and at what point do you think President Trump will give the green light to Kyiv for these Tomahawks?
Oh, well, that's the million-dollar question. I think that when his level of frustration with the intransigence of Putin and the Russians reaches a point where he thinks, well, we've tried everything else and it's just not making any headway whatsoever. So let's now press the button and try to bring this to a conclusion as quickly as possible. But that, of course, does risk escalation, as Putin keeps pointing out. And so there's a bit of bluff and counter-bluff going on. But, I mean, Donald Trump and the USA are by far and away the most powerful actor in this particular negotiation. And really, the ball is in the US president's court.
Yeah. Well, they certainly, if they weren't the most powerful before, I mean, Trump ordered another 112 B-2 bombers the other day, or said he had an intention to order them anyway. So, yeah, talk about an arsenal away. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford, thank you very much.